My name is Mike Sullivan. I'm a former IRS agent and teaching instructor with the IRS. Welcome to my YouTube station. I've worked thousands of cases as a revenue officer. I've worked the trust fund recovery penalty cases, probably more than you're going to want to know. Probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 cases. So today I want to go over with you the 4180, the interview form. But before I do that, I want to tell you about how a revenue officer goes ahead and addresses a trust fund case. So when you get your inventory at Internal Revenue Service, you get unfiled returns, you get people who owe money, you get corporations, and you get all sorts of things. You got, as my father would say, lime, lemon, and large of all cases you get in your inventory. Well, many times you get corporations that owe 941 taxes. And at the end of the day, you want to collect that trust fund money. What is trust fund? The trust fund money is the money that the person who owned the business was supposed to withhold and give over to the government. That money is called the trust fund money, the money they held in trust. What did they hold in trust? They held in trust the withholding, half of the Social Security, and then they had to match the other half of the Social Security. Well, when the companies don't pay that over to the government has a penalty that they can go ahead and assert. It's the 6672 penalty against those people that are deemed responsible to pay this tax, and it can be more than one. It can be one, two, three. I one time had 12 people I asserted the penalty against. So how does a revenue officer make that determination? And that's what I want to talk to you about. So I now have this case in inventory. The company's either ready to go out of business or they want to stay in business, and I have to make a determination who's responsible for the trust fund penalty. Well, what happens when you go out and talk to the people? They all go like this. I'll say, who is responsible? They all go like this. They always point to the other person. So the revenue officer has to make a determination who is responsible for this trust fund penalty per se. So what you do is you start with the facts of the case. If they don't give them to you, you go ahead and summons for the corporate resolutions, and the bank signature cards are big. You want to get loan documents. You want to get anything that you can make your case to set up the trust fund penalty. Now, it can be a secretary, it could be the person who owns the business. It's the revenue officer's job to make that determination. Now, with that said, there are some lazy revenue officers, and there's some really good ones that truly want to find out who's responsible. More times than not, when we had high inventories, you just threw a blanket net and says anyone who either came in and out the doors, you're going to hold them responsible. But generally, anyone who signed the bank signature cards, as a general rule, was going to get set up for the trust fund recovery penalty. So remember, the trust fund recovery penalty is comprised of the withholding, the Social Security tax that was held in trust, be paid over to the United States government, and that money did not go. So now I'm working my investigation, and one of the key forms that I need to go ahead and give the responsible parties or the people I think are responsible is the form 4180. That's a 4180 interview. You should download the form because a revenue officer most of the time wants to fill this form out with the taxpayer present. So if you're a representative or you're hearing this, you want to look at this form, go over the form, so you know what the questions are coming up to you. So sometimes it started out 4 pages, it went to 6 pages. I have no idea by the time when you're looking at this what rendition or what year your 4180 came out, because some offices don't even have the new, some have the old 4180. But really, you want to go over this, and here's key you have to know. If you don't know an answer, you want to mark unknown. Unknown shows you really don't know, don't guess. If you're not sure, you want to let the IRS know, I have no idea, maybe I'm not the responsible party. Ask someone who's the responsible party. But section 2, depending on which 4180 you have, is the key section, and that's for responsibilities. That is really critical because if I was taking the 4180 interview on you, if you're looking at this, I want to know this. Who determined financial business policies? I'm reading from the 4180. Who directed or authorized payments? Who prepared or signed the 941? Who had knowledge of the tax? Who authorized payroll? Who signed corporate returns? Who made federal tax deposits? Who had the assignment of the EFTPS banking things? Who had the passwords? You want to find out really at the end of the day who controlled the payroll, who controlled the payments, and who authorized these things. At the end of the day, a good revenue officer is going to find out who had the authority. Some lazy revenue officers, like I say, will just hold everybody responsible. Anyone that had a corporate office worked in the office, they'll hold anyone and everybody and let everyone battle it out in appeals. But many times you were not the responsible party, but the IRS is going to interview you. If this is the case, make sure on the 4180 interview, if you don't know the answer, say unknown, don't guess. If you start guessing, it shows that you had maybe more knowledge than you had. Remember, at the end of the day, what this is going to come down to is who actually authorized bills to be paid and who could have done something about it. IRS is trying to find out who was that decision maker, and many times there may have been 3 or 4 people. So what the IRS does, they're going to throw a blanket. They're going to say, well, these 4 people we think are responsible. We're going to assert the penalty against you and you can battle it out. Now when a case goes to the appeals division is really going to drill down and find out who's responsible. They're going to do a lot more discovery, and they're going to interview everyone, and everyone's going to blame the other party. That's what always happens. So if this happens to you, I want to tell you a couple other things you need to know. If this penalty is going to be asserted against you, there is no failure to pay, there's only interest. By the time IRS assesses these penalties against the responsible party, from the time IRS starts the investigation to the time you get the assessment, including maybe you're going to file an appeal, sometimes 9 months to a year. It takes a long time. But remember, this 4180 interview is just another tool in the revenue officer's toolbox to assert who's responsible, who's not. And by the way, the revenue officer puts all this information together, the bank signature cards, the corporate resolutions, maybe loan documents, other interviews, anything else they pulled up. They go ahead and they give this whole case to the manager and says, these are the parties we're holding responsible. The manager must sign off on these on a 4183. So if you're going to do a FOIA request to find out did the manager really assert this and find out this is absolutely true on the FOIA request, you should find that the manager went ahead and approved this. If not, you got a really good case to win the case and show non-assertion. Anyway, we're really good at this. If you have problems, you want questions answered and need representation, I can't tell you how many trust fund recovery penalties I work, but the 4180 form, this is really this particular video that I'm doing. The 4180 is a critical piece because usually the revenue officer's job is to interview everyone they think deemed responsible, and they're trying to get you to point to someone else, because the more people who set up for this, the better, because the chances are now IRS is going to get the trust fund paid. Give me a subscription if you would. I always got what you need. I've worked thousands of cases. Thank you for listening today. I appreciate you.